And we're back with Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stunner podcast. I'm not with my co-host Evan today. It's just a solo one. I was with Evan yesterday. We recorded the 14th episode of the Lonely Stunner podcast, and by the time this drops, that would have dropped. So make sure you check out episode 14, and you're checking out episode 7 of Seth's Solo Side Quest right now as well. I was talking for a few minutes previously, but then realised I hadn't even started recording, so I was just talking to myself. And even doing this, of course, I am talking to myself, but it's for a purpose. Of course, last night we had huge UFC 311, 2 title fights, a pretty decent main card, and actually nothing special was a main card, but yeah, like a decent main card. So we're going to talk a bit about that, talk about some other news, boxing news, some news in that realm. Maybe some WWE stuff, we'll see if there's anything popping on Bleacher Report. That's what I do for most of the stuff. I'm going through Bleacher Report articles and I'm giving my takes as and when I find the good stuff. But yeah, we'll start off with UFC 311. And, I mean, what a card. You know, a very good card. I guess we'll start off with the main event. Islam Makhachev v Renato Moicano. Now, as much as this really does break my heart to say, but Islam Makhachev stopped Renato Moicano in the first round from, it was a darce choke, wasn't it? Yeah, from a darce choke. And it's a shame because the Lonely Stunner podcast, myself, Seth, and my co-host Evan, everyone knows we love Money Moicano. Who doesn't love Renato Moicano, bro? He's tremendous fighter, streaking, great personality. The type of personality we need more in UFC and more in MMA. A guy who's, just unapologetically himself. You know, a guy who just marches to the beat of his own drum. There's not many guys like that in the UFC. Renato Moicano was one of them. So to see him get a title shot following Arman Tsarukyan pulling out, it was a great moment to hear that, because you know he's going to be getting paid as well. Like, I think we all knew going into this fight, Renato Moicano didn't really have any paths to victory. And we mentioned this on the podcast previously to UFC 311, that, you know, Moicano doesn't really have any paths to victory. And like I'd said to Evan, Renato Moicano, as much as we love him, in terms of him just being a fighter, in terms of his player build, he's just a worse version of Charles Oliveira. And that doesn't mean Renato Moicano is bad. That kind of shows how good Oliveira is. I mean, how good Makhachev is, because Makhachev's beaten both of these guys. Obviously, with Charles Oliveira, you've got very good striking. With Moicano, you've got okay striking. Then with Oliveira, you get, amazing grappling. And with Moicano, you get great grappling too, but not amazing. He's just like Oliveira, but a bit worse. So, and Makhachev handled Oliveira, and now he's handled Moicano. And this will be Islam's 13th career submission. A guy who's just ridiculously overpowered, it feels like. Run through the division, beaten guys from the lower weight class. What's next for him? What's next for Islam? I want to see Islam. Me personally, I'd be interested to hear what Evan thinks if he makes a side quest episode himself, or next week on the podcast. But I'd want to see Islam move up to welterweight, because one, he's big enough to do it, and him v Bilal, it could be a situation where they're both just really good wrestlers, so that kind of cancels each other out. So neither of them really try to wrestle because they kind of respect each other's wrestling. In which case, Islam makes it just a pure striking match, and he probably cooks Bilal, if I'm being honest. Bilal's an awful striker. I mean, he's able to apply pressure from striking, but that's really just because of the threat of his wrestling. Really and truly. Let me grab a drink, but I just rasped one. So my throat's dry, faded. That's the only way to be producing content, guys. You gotta be high when you're producing content, because if you're not, what are we doing? But we got an orange Lucozade from the boss man. Yeah, hear that fizz. It's like that food ASMR shit, right? Good stuff. Good stuff. But I might edit that out. I probably won't, because game is game at this point. I just keep it in because that's the type of guy I am. But yeah, Islam's another huge title defense for Islam. Moicano's first loss after a 4-fight win streak. Yeah, 4-fight win streak for Moicano. That's done now. Yep, shit the mic. But Renato Moicano was asked after the match, after the fight, that and said Islam was much better than I am today. I don't know if I'll ever get a chance like that again, but I'll try my best. Yeah, man. You gotta love Moicano, man, because you gotta be humble in defeat too. You can't be like Jamal Hill, and then saying like you got dominated, I got caught, like completely different, bro. You got your ass handed. Both of you got your ass handed to you by Poatan. Yuri and Jamal Hill, you both got your ass handed to each other. Like, don't try and compare ass whippings. You both got your asses cooked. But yeah, Islam. Who beats this guy? Really and truly, who can stop the sort of run he's on? The only way, when you get a guy this dominant, the only thing that can stop them is like themselves, and that can be a number of different things. That could be him getting too old. The thing is, because these Dagestanis, they're crazy disciplined, so they're not going to be like, oh, he started partying and not training as hard, and he's kind of fallen off. That won't happen. There's no threat of that. The only threat is him like getting older, getting chinny, and then maybe getting knocked out. But he's only 33, and the way these Dagestanis are, like, he could probably be at the top level for the next 3-4 years potentially. Really, he could be at the top level for the next 3-4 years, especially if he moves up as well, and he gets like another leash on life. Because Islam at 155, as you get older, that cut is a brutal cut regardless for him. But the older you get, the harder it's going to be to make that cut. So sooner rather than later, I could see him moving up to welterweight, but we'll see. Because I guess what I could see happening is Islam maybe defends against Arman later in the year, and then Shavkat faces Bilal. Say Shavkat beats Bilal, then you've got Shavkat v Islam for the welterweight title. That's a huge fight. That is a seriously huge fight for the UFC. You've got Islam, who's at that point, once he's beaten Moicano, let's say he goes on to beat Arman, he's probably the GOAT lightweight ever. Obviously the GOAT. He's probably the GOAT lightweight. The GOAT lightweight against the undefeated welterweight champion. That's a huge money fight for the UFC. Huge money fight. Even if Bilal was to win, in terms of it being a money fight, it's a big fight. Obviously, if we're talking quality of fight, Shavkat v Islam would be way more entertaining than Bilal v Islam. And even then, I could see Islam beating Shavkat if they were to fight. I think the fight against Ian Gary showed that Shavkat, even though Shavkat did beat Ian Gary, and it was pretty convincing, Ian Gary did have some moments, and there was times when he was able to sort of control Shavkat's game a bit. So if Ian Gary can do that to you, then MMA math doesn't work like this. We've looked at MMA math many times over the years, and it never really works like this. But hey, we'll see. But shame for Moicano. Like he said, like he's not sure if he'll ever get an opportunity like that again. He's ranked number 10. He should be ranked like number 6. If he was ranked number 6 and then put together 2 or 3 more wins, he could probably get another title shot. But the thing is, he's ranked number 10 and he's just lost. It may take another 4 or 5 fight win streak to get to a title fight again, by which point he's 35 now. He'd be like probably 37, 38 by that point. And a 38-year-old Moicano fighting again for the world title. Again, it won't be easy for him. But Moicano's kind of showed, you don't and it's kind of testament to modern UFC and modern MMA. Like, you don't have to be the champion to still be making nice amounts of money. So Moicano, I mean, he definitely got paid a nice chunk for this fight. I imagine Dana's, sorting him out nicely on the back end. I'd be super curious to know what these guys made for this fight. Imagine Moicano 400, $500,000 maybe. I don't think they'd pay him $1 million for this, but $500,000 maybe. They give Moicano $500,000 for stepping up to the main event. Moicano's eating, bro. He is eating. And he can't afford to lose, but he did lose this time. But I'm hoping to see next fight, Moicano's back in the win column. Give him another big fight, but a winnable fight. Get him, maybe the Dariush fight. Maybe, because I don't think Moicano took a ton of damage. I mean, yeah, he couldn't have. I mean, it was the first round. It was like a minute in, wasn't it? It was very quick. So Moicano didn't take a ton of damage, so he could probably be back in there quite soon. Maybe a couple months. I mean, it's January now. He could probably fight again in March, April. Realistically, he could fight next week, but you know how the UFC is. If he, Moicano could probably fight February, March time. Shame that Paddy's got a fight for UFC London. If he didn't, then Moicano could have stepped in. Another big payday for him, and then he's going clear, bro. If he get paid like $500,000 for Moicano for the Islam fight, then Moicano goes on to face Paddy, so he makes 200-300K for that. Bro, man's touched nearly $1 million in the first quarter of 2025, and he's talking about he can't afford to lose. But now he can afford to lose. But yeah, Moicano, next fight, I want to see him in the win column. That's what I'm saying. And then my prediction for the bantamweight co-main event was correct. Merab defends his UFC bantamweight championship successfully against Umar Nurmagomedov. Pushed the pace the entire fight. As Bilal done what Bilal does. Bit of plot armor, bit of wrestling, bit of pressure, and he won the fight. I think Umar probably started the fight off a bit better and was probably. I would give Umar the first and second round, personally. But Bilal, like I said on the podcast, Bilal's great at winning rounds, and he won those rounds. In my opinion, he won the third, fourth, and fifth. In my opinion, but I've only watched the fight once. I want to go back and watch this fight again because I'd be interested to see if I score it different. If I give Umar an extra round and maybe on rewatch I think Umar wins, or if I give another round to Bilal, or if I think I got my scoring initially right. But Bilal done what Bilal does, pushed the pace, shot for loads of takedowns, and just kept pushing the pace. And if you're not used to that, it's gonna gas you out. And that's kind of what happened. And when we saw that, as the fight progressed, Umar kind of gas tank dwindled a bit, and Merab was just building into it, just growing into the fight, just growing and growing and growing into the fight. And that's his 11th win at bantamweight. He's on a streak, but unfortunately, Merab's one of these guys like a Pantoja. He kind of ran through the division before winning the belt. So Merab's beaten Henry Cejudo, beaten what's he called? Peter Yan. He's beaten a lot of these top contenders. Obviously Merab beat Sean O'Malley already as well. He's now beaten Umar. He'll never fight Aljo, and Aljo's gone up to featherweight now. They'll never fight Aljo because they're boys. But Merab's he's on a run. And they may have to do a sort of thing where once Merab's kind of ran through the division, they move Pantoja up and just give Pantoja an immediate title shot for Merab, and they do that as like a pretty big money fight at that point, because two guys that are streaking at the top of their game, two world champions, They fight against each other. Again, another big money fight. I mean, I keep sort of suggesting for these guys to have like fights out of their weight class. I don't know why I keep doing that. I don't know why I did that. Because they're dominant, to be fair. That's why I do it. Because they're dominant. And they've ran through the division. And now it's just going to get to a point where they're just doing rematches for title defenses. Happened with DJ. And people weren't really rating it. Because it's like, okay, let's say he dominates Joseph Benavidez. Then fights another 2 more guys. And then he has to fight Joseph Benavidez again. Because the division is just not deep enough. And like he's just running through everyone. They did it. It got so bad to a point where they had to run Ultimate Fighter series and the winner got a title shot. Like, how down bad does a division have to be for there to be an Ultimate Fighter series just to give a guy a title shot? But yeah, that's maybe a topic for something else when I just keep telling UFC to do these 2-weight title fights. Then my boy, again, another W prediction from me. Another great prediction from me. Yuri Prochazka, is that right? Yuri Prochazka beat Jamal Hill. Yuri's got, he's got plot armor, but bro, he can bang, bro. Yuri doesn't. He's only lost to Poatan. He's had some not great performances, but when you've got a guy who blocks punches with his face, to be fair to Yuri in this fight, his head movement was pretty good. Like, Jamal Hill wasn't landing a ton of shots on him, considering all things considered, right? But this does kind of show the state of the light heavyweight division, because Yuri's not. He's a very good fighter, of course, and won a lot of fights. But Yuri's now won again. What are you gonna do? Have him do a trilogy with Poatan and get knocked out again? You know, like, when does it get to a point where, like, this is just like, you just peak. Just peak on Yuri. Like, you're just using him, just throwing him as a lamb to the slaughter like 3 times, and he just gets beaten. The brakes get beaten off of him, right? So yeah, I recently also got announced Alex Pereira will be facing Magomed Ankalaev, Big Ank, Big Wank, at UFC 313 in March. So, I mean, I guess if Ankalaev wins, then that does kind of reopen the light heavyweight title scene again, and Yuri could probably get a title fight off that, off this win, because Ankalaev's now a new champion, and Yuri against Ankalaev, I wouldn't be so sure that Ankalaev wins that. You know, Yuri's a tricky fighter to beat. You know, he's hard. He's not hard to hit because he blocks punches with his face, but the Jamal Hill fight showed that at times, when he wants to be, he could be kind of hard to hit. And of course, he showed the power by knocking out Jamal Hill. You know, Jamal Hill's got a very, very weird player build. Now this guy, with that sort of player builds in the UFC, but he must be doing something right. But past couple fights he's not been. But maybe he'll get that Khalil fight now, because he was supposed to fight Khalil last year, but then Khalil self-snitched on himself. But man, charge it to the game, bro. Charge it to the game. Yeah, that was it. That's probably it from UFC 311. Kevin Holland was on the card, actually, one of my favourite guys at one point. Now he's lost again. So this is back-to-back losses. Fighting at welterweight. Got a rear naked submission. What was this? First round. Yeah, first round. Reina Derrida submits Kevin Holland in round 1. Come on, Kevin, man. We want you to be winning championships, bro. And you're out here moving mad, saying you want to fight Rampage, and you can't even beat Reina Derrida, and you want to fight Rampage. Like, come on, bro. Go down to welterweight, bro, and kind of dash guys about. Middleweight, you're not built for middleweight. You just get ragdolled, bro. You just get ragdolled. But yeah, that's probably going to be it from UFC 311. We'll see what else we've got here from boxing news. Well, we did get announced that Chris Eubank Jr. will be facing Conor Benn. It looks like Eddie Hearn's managed to get the fighters to come to terms over a fight, and it's targeted for the end of April at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Of course, they previously had a fight announced in October 2022. Wow, that's how long it was. Over 2 years ago, this fight got announced originally, then cancelled. Oh, wow. Oh, that makes me feel old. Over 2 years ago, wow. But that fight was announced and agreed to be at 157. This fight is now going to be contested at 160 pounds, which definitely gives Chris Eubank Jr. the advantage, because it means he has to cut less weight. And then you've got Conor Benn. Conor Benn is a big puncher, but he's been a big puncher at 147. At welterweight, not at middleweight. He's never fought at middleweight. As far as I know, he's never fought at middleweight. So he'd be coming up for 2 weight divisions, because there's welterweight, super welterweight, and then middleweight. So there's welterweight at 147, super welterweight at 154, and then middleweight at 160. So wow, that's big news. It looks like as part of this fight, there's also going to be a rehydration clause, which means on fight night, neither of them can be weighing over 170, which won't be a problem for Chris Eubank, because he's fought at 168, and he's known as like a small 168er at super middleweight. But to be fair, Chris Eubank Jr., he's fought respectable guys at super middleweight, and has beaten guys at super middleweight as well. And he even won like one of those BS titles, is like the IBO or IB something world title at super middleweight, and he's facing a welterweight. So, in my opinion, that alone makes Chris Eubank a big favourite for me. Conor Benn's probably the better boxer, and in terms of resume, Conor Benn's probably got the better resume as well. Actually, maybe not. Maybe not, because Chris Eubank's probably been in there with a higher caliber of fighter as well. He's lost to them, but Chris Eubank's experienced being in these moments now. And he's only really been knocked out. He was knocked out once, wasn't he? As far as I know, right? He's only been knocked out once. That was a bad knockout, to be fair, but he's been knocked out once, but it depends. What the real determining factor will be, is Conor Benn just a big puncher at welterweight, or is he a big puncher regardless? Because if he could knock out Chris Eubank at middleweight, Chris Eubank Jr. at middleweight, then Conor Benn's a serious puncher. So we'll see. We will see. But my pick, my way too early prediction for that fight will be Chris Eubank Jr. He could stop him, because he's going to be so much bigger than him. He could stop him, but yeah, because Chris Eubank Jr. he's not able to box well enough for 12 rounds. Assuming this will be a 12-round fight. Chris Eubank Jr. is typically not good enough of a disciplined boxer to fight well against a high-level guy for 12 rounds. You know, I feel like Chris Eubank Jr. either has to stop them or do a lot of damage to them early on in the fight, so then they're just gun-shy the rest of the fight, and Chris Eubank can just implement his game plan like the way he does, without much resistance from the opposition. But yeah, way too early prediction for that is is Chris Eubank winning that fight. But yeah, we'll probably go into see if there's any WWE news going on. Of course, the WWE and TNA announced a partnership, which involves exchange of TNA and NXT talent. Really interesting. I mean, obviously they've got Nick Nemeth, TNA have got Nick Nemeth, former Dolph Ziggler, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler in WWE. He's now in TNA as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I would love to see an angle where Dolph Ziggler comes back to WWE and fights for the NXT title and then wins it, because he's won the NXT title before. They did a good storyline there, and again, that was the sort of stuff that I love because you're watching it, you're like, Dolph Ziggler in NXT, that's nothing special. Then you watch it and you're like, damn, this guy's kind of cooking. And then he wins the title. You're like, okay, they're just going to use Dolph Ziggler the way they always use him and just throw him down there, let him have some good matches, and he's probably going to lose, right? But no, they had him down there and he won the NXT title, and he had a bit of a run on the NXT title. He didn't have it for a really long time. He doesn't need to, you know? It's about keeping it unpredictable. You know, it's about making people feel like it's must-see TV. Like, everyone was expecting, when that match happened, it was a triple threat, if I remember correctly. But I think everyone watching that match was expecting Bron Breakker to retain the NXT title. But Dolph Ziggler wins the NXT title in that match, right? No one was expecting that. So you're like, damn, Dolph Ziggler's now NXT champion. Anything can happen. I've got to watch next week. And there's not enough of that in WWE. There's not enough in WWE. And I've said that a million times. I sound like a broken record at this point. But yeah, I'll be super interested to see what happens in the WWE and TNA partnership, talent sharing deal. Will be a good opportunity for more of these NXT guys as well. A lot of these NXT guys can get, more experience on TNA cards and working in front of live audiences that are different to WWE. Like I said, it's a really good, really interesting sort of position for both companies to be in. And a deal that I think, in my opinion, in theory, should come out for both sides as a win-win deal. Should come out as a win-win deal. But yeah, I think that's probably going to be it from me now. I've been going on for a bit. We talked about UFC 311, talked about the newly announced Chris Eubank Jr. v Conor Benn fight, and we talked about the new WWE and NXT talent sharing deal. So yeah, that's it from me. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stoner Podcast. This has been episode 7 of the Seth Solo Side Quest, and I'm out. Peace.